The early morning sun painted soft golden rays over the worn brick walls of Lincoln Conservatory, a respected but modest music school nestled quietly in the suburbs. As its old gates creaked open, faculty and students trickled into the building, their chatter echoing through the high-arched hallways. A new term had begun, and with it came the excitement of change. New faces, fresh talent, and most importantly this year, the hiring of a new vocal coach for the senior opera program. Among the steady flow of applicants entering through the side entrance, a woman moved quietly, almost unnoticed. She wasn't clad in designer coats or heels like the others. Instead, she wore a simple navy skirt, a beige cardigan, and comfortable shoes. Her brown hair was tucked into a low bun, and she carried only a well-loved music folder pressed gently to her chest. Her name was Clara Bennett. Few looked her way. Those who did offered quick glances and returned to their conversations, assuming she was someone's assistant or perhaps a janitor passing through. Clara didn't mind. In fact, she had dressed this way deliberately. For years, Clara had performed under bright lights and grand chandeliers. Her name once graced the programs of theaters in Rome, Paris, and Vienna. But that had been another life, one she walked away from when the applause started feeling emptier than the silence she longed for. Fame had taken much, including her time, her peace, and even her voice for a while. She had disappeared from the public eye quietly, intentionally, and not even those in today's audition committee knew she was applying. That was how she wanted it. The audition room buzzed with nervous excitement. A few feet away, ambitious vocalists shared stories of their degrees, accolades, and mentors. One young woman in a tailored green dress boasted about her masterclasses in Milan. Another discussed her recent solo with a well-known symphony. Clara stood silently by the door, listening but not engaging. At the far end of the room sat Professor Lionel Markham, the head of the vocal department, a man known for his strict discipline and exacting ear. Word around the conservatory was that Professor Markham could identify a note out of tune even before it was sung. His sharp, observant eyes scanned every candidate from top to toe as if measuring their worth before they even sang a note. Next to him were two other faculty members and a few top-tier students allowed to observe the process. It was a big deal. The conservatory hadn't hired a new opera coach in over a decade, and the program's reputation depended heavily on finding someone with both technical mastery and the heart to nurture greatness in others. One by one, the candidates were called. Jessica Turner, the assistant called. A confident woman with perfect posture stepped in and handed her resume to the panel. She sang with polished brilliance, a soprano with precision, control, and stage presence. Professor Markham nodded, made a few notes, and offered a tight smile. Next came Robert, then Annika, then several more. All impressively trained, all technically excellent. Clara watched each audition carefully. She wasn't nervous, just reflective. She knew the piece she had chosen would be a challenge, the famous soprano aria Der Hölle Rache from Mozart's The Magic Flute, a song so complex and demanding that even seasoned professionals approached it with caution. But Clara didn't fear the song. She respected it. It had been the aria that launched her into stardom all those years ago. It was also the piece she last sang before vanishing from the stage. As the auditions progressed, some students seated at the back started whispering when they noticed Clara was still there. Did she get lost? Maybe she's here to clean up after the auditions. Clara heard them but didn't flinch. She simply waited, her hands resting calmly on her music folder. Finally, the assistant scanned her list and called, "Clara Bennett." There was a brief pause in the room. Some heads turned with puzzled expressions. Clara stepped forward with steady grace and handed the panel her sheet music. No resume, no accolades, just the music. Professor Markham looked up, eyebrows raised. "No biography?" "No," Clara said, her voice calm. "I thought I'd let the music speak for itself." There was a flicker of intrigue in Markham's eyes, but he remained guarded. "Very well, what will you be performing?" "Der Hölle Rache," Clara replied softly. A subtle shift moved through the room. The students looked at each other, in disbelief. One of the faculty whispered, "That's ambitious." Another raised an eyebrow. Professor Markham folded his hands. "Proceed." Clara nodded and took her place beside the piano. She inhaled slowly, her eyes closed for a brief second. In that moment, the whispers and judgments faded. She remembered her mother's lullabies, the dusty attic where she once sang to the silence, the thunderous applause of distant nights, and the years she had spent teaching herself to live again, quietly, humbly, far from the stage. Then she began to sing. It was not just a performance. It was an awakening. The first notes soared with power, clarity, and emotion. The aria, known for its impossible leaps and fierce tempo, emerged from Clara as if it lived inside her. Her voice danced with fire and control, hitting each note with devastating accuracy and emotional intensity. Even the piano accompanist, a seasoned player, blinked in surprise at her flawless timing. The room, once filled with silent judgment, now brimmed with awe. Students who had been whispering leaned forward, eyes wide. One of them dropped his pen. The faculty stared, stunned, and for the first time that morning, Professor Markham didn't take a single note. He simply watched, his expression unreadable but utterly focused. As Clara reached the climax of the piece, her voice seemed to wrap around every listener in the room, pulling them into her story, not just of technical brilliance, but of a life lived deeply, of loss, of resilience, of return. When the final note rang out and faded into silence, Clara stood still, her hands at her sides, her eyes glistening. No one spoke. The room was frozen. Then slowly one of the students stood and began to clap. Another followed. Soon the entire room erupted in applause, thunderous, genuine, stunned. Professor Markham remained seated, still saying nothing. But as Clara turned to leave, he finally spoke. "Miss Bennet, where did you say you studied?" She smiled gently. "Nowhere recently, but I've studied life." And with that, she walked out of the audition room, leaving behind not just stunned faces, but a room forever changed by the return of a voice that had never truly disappeared. The applause still echoed faintly in Clara's ears as she stepped out into the quiet corridor beyond the audition room. Her heart, which had been calm moments before, now fluttered with a mixture of relief and anticipation. She had sung not to prove something to anyone, but to reclaim a part of herself she had almost lost. Yet, even in that fleeting moment of triumph, she wondered what would come next. As she gathered her music folder and prepared to leave, a soft voice called her back. It was Professor Lionel Markham. His face, usually stern and unyielding, now held something unfamiliar. Curiosity, perhaps even respect. "Miss Bennet, may I have a word?" he asked, gesturing to a small office nearby. She nodded, following him through a narrow hallway lined with faded photographs of past conservatory legends. Some she remembered from her earlier years, others she only knew by reputation. The door to the office closed behind them with a muted click. "Your performance was extraordinary," Markham began, his tone more sincere than Clara expected. "I've heard many talented singers, but few with the control, emotion, and presence you displayed today. Tell me, why apply here, anonymously, without your credentials? It's unusual." Clara took a deep breath, considering how much to reveal. "Professor, I wanted to be judged only by my voice and my ability to teach. I've performed in some of the world's most prestigious opera houses, but over time I felt the need to step away. The spotlight can be blinding. I came here because I believe true teaching begins when you forget who you were and focus on who you can help others become." Markham leaned back in his chair, eyes thoughtful. "You've carried a great burden then. The path of an artist is often lonely, filled with sacrifices most don't see." She smiled faintly. "Lonely, yes. But it's also been a journey of rediscovery. Teaching here means more to me now than applause ever did." Markham nodded slowly. "We need someone like you, a voice that not only sings but understands the soul behind the music. The students here are talented, but often lack the heart that turns technique into true artistry. Clara felt a warmth she hadn't experienced in years, the hope of belonging somewhere again, of making a meaningful difference. Over the next few days, Clara was invited to meet with the conservatory's dean and the board of directors. Her mysterious background stirred whispers, and many were skeptical of the woman who had arrived without fanfare or fanfare's usual endorsements. But no one could deny the power of her voice, and more importantly, the passion she radiated when she spoke of teaching. Meanwhile, word of her performance spread quietly among the student body. Some approached her with reverence, others with cautious curiosity. One student, Mia, a shy soprano with a promising future, sought her out after a class. "I heard you sing," Mia said, eyes shining with admiration. "I've never heard anything like it. How did you do it?" Clara smiled kindly. "Music is about more than notes on a page, Mia. It's about telling a story, living the emotion behind each phrase. When you can do that, the music becomes alive." Mia nodded, eager to learn but also intimidated. "I want to sing like you someday." "You will," Clara assured her. "But you must first learn to listen, to yourself, to the world around you, and to your heart." Days turned into weeks, and Clara began her work with the students. She was tough but nurturing, demanding technical excellence while encouraging vulnerability and expression. Some resisted at first, uncomfortable with her unconventional methods, but slowly her lessons awakened something dormant within them: the courage to take risks, the freedom to be imperfect, and the strength to persevere. One afternoon, as Clara reviewed a student's vocal exercises, a knock came at her door. It was the conservatory's director, Mr. Caldwell, a man known for his pragmatic approach to education. "Clara, may I have a moment?" he asked, stepping inside. She looked up from her papers. "Of course." He hesitated, then said, "There's been some concern among the board about your background. They're questioning whether you're the right fit for the conservatory's image and goals." Clara met his gaze steadily. "I understand their concerns, but I'm here to teach, not to impress. My only goal is to help these students find their voices." Caldwell sighed. "I respect your dedication, but the conservatory also relies on reputation and funding. If the board isn't convinced—" Before he could finish, Clara spoke firmly. "Then I will prove my worth through results, not stories. Let my work speak for me." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. We'll see what the future holds." That evening, Clara sat by her small apartment window, gazing out at the city lights. Doubts whispered in the back of her mind. Had she made a mistake? Could she truly escape her past and build something new here? Yet as she closed her eyes, she heard again the memory of the final note she sang at the audition, ringing clear and strong. It was a promise to herself, a promise to reclaim her voice not just for herself, but for all the students who needed someone to believe in them. The journey had only just begun. The following weeks brought a whirlwind of challenges and small victories. Clara found herself navigating a delicate balance, gaining the trust of skeptical faculty members, inspiring hesitant students, and confronting the lingering shadows of her own past. Every day was a new test, but she embraced it fully, determined to prove that true artistry went beyond fame or fortune. The conservatory's halls buzzed with renewed energy as Clara's reputation began to spread. Students who had once dreaded grueling rehearsals now approached with eagerness, eager to absorb her wisdom. She introduced exercises that focused not only on vocal technique, but on storytelling, breathing life into each note. Her methods were different, sometimes unconventional, but her results were undeniable. One afternoon, during a masterclass, Clara asked the students to perform a piece that they personally connected with, a song that told their story. Nervous voices filled the room, each hesitant at first but growing stronger as they learned to embrace their vulnerability. When it came time for Mia, the shy soprano who had sought Clara's guidance, she sang a delicate ballad about hope and loss. Her voice trembled at first, but as Clara smiled encouragingly from the piano bench, Mia found strength she never knew she had. After the class, Mia approached Clara, tears glistening in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "You helped me find my voice, not just in singing, but in myself." Clara's heart swelled. Moments like these were why she had returned. It wasn't about the spotlight. It was about lifting others out of their silence, but not all was easy. Some faculty members remained wary, their doubts casting a shadow over her progress. During one faculty meeting, a respected senior professor voiced concerns. "Clara's talent is undeniable," he said, "but her lack of formal teaching experience shows. We can't risk the conservatory's reputation on sentiment." The room murmured agreement, and Clara felt the sting of criticism. Yet instead of retreating, she saw it as fuel to work harder, to show that passion and dedication could outweigh mere credentials. Outside the conservatory, Clara's past quietly began to catch up with her. An old acquaintance from her opera, Days Marcus Valenti, reached out unexpectedly. Once a celebrated tenor and her closest friend, Marcus had watched her disappearance with confusion and concern. They met one rainy evening at a quiet cafe, the rain tapping softly against the window pane as memories floated between them. "Clara," Marcus said gently, "why did you leave everything behind? Your voice could have taken you anywhere." She sighed, tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "Because I lost myself in the chase. The applause faded, but the loneliness didn't. I needed to find who I was beneath it all." Marcus nodded slowly. "I understand, but the world still needs to hear you." Clara smiled wistfully. "Maybe not as a performer anymore. Now, I want to teach, to give others what I had. A chance to live their dreams without losing themselves." Their conversation was interrupted by a message on Clara's phone. A text from Mia. "Clara, I got the lead role in the upcoming conservatory production. Thank you for believing in me." A warmth spread through Clara's chest. This was the impact she had hoped for, the quiet victories that meant everything. Days later, as rehearsals for the conservatory's major opera production began, Clara found herself at the center of a new challenge. The lead soprano, a talented but arrogant student named Selena, resisted Clara's guidance, dismissing her as outdated and overly emotional. During one particularly tense rehearsal, Selena snapped, "I don't need lessons on feeling the music. I've studied with the best." Clara met her gaze calmly. "Technique without heart is just noise. If you want to truly move your audience, you must first move yourself." Selena scoffed and stormed off, leaving the room heavy with silence. Later, that day, Clara sat alone in the empty auditorium, her thoughts heavy. Teaching wasn't just about sharing skills. It was about breaking through walls built by fear and pride. She knew she would need patience and perseverance, but also unwavering belief in her students' potential. That evening, Clara received an unexpected invitation from the conservatory's director to attend a gala honoring past alumni. It was an opportunity to reconnect with the broader music community and perhaps ease some of the board's concerns. Dressed simply but elegantly, Clara entered the grand ballroom filled with distinguished guests. Among them were former students who had gone on to successful careers, faculty members both supportive and skeptical, and music lovers from around the city. As she mingled, Clara found herself approached by an influential patron of the arts, Mrs. Evelyn Hartwell. "I heard about your audition," Mrs. Hartwell said warmly. "Your voice captivated everyone. The conservatory is fortunate to have you." Clara thanked her, humbled by the praise. Mrs. Hartwell continued, "Talent like yours is rare. I hope you stay, and I hope you help shape the next generation of singers." The evening ended with Clara feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead was uncertain, but she was no longer alone. She had a community, students who believed in her, and a voice that had found its true home, not on a grand stage, but in the hearts of those she taught. As the gala lights dimmed, Clara looked out over the city skyline, ready to face whatever challenges came next, confident that her journey was far from over. The weeks that followed the gala were marked by transformation, for Clara, for her students, and for the conservatory itself. Slowly but surely, Clara's presence began to Shift the atmosphere within those historic walls. Where once there had been quiet skepticism, a growing sense of excitement and possibility took root. Clara's approach to teaching was as much about inspiring confidence as it was about perfecting technique. Each day, she reminded her students that their voices were not merely instruments but extensions of their souls. She challenged them to look inward, to unearth their deepest emotions and fears, and to pour those truths into their music. Selena, the talented soprano who had resisted Clara's lessons, continued to push back at first. Her pride made her wary of vulnerability, and she feared losing control. But Clara was patient. She understood that breaking through Selena's defenses required more than words. It required trust. So Clara found small ways to encourage her, praising moments of sincerity, offering private conversations about the power of authenticity, and sharing her own stories of struggle and resilience. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult rehearsal, Clara stayed behind with Selena. The young woman's voice was raw, her usual confidence shaken. "Why does it feel like the more I try, the less I have?" Selena asked, her voice trembling. Clara looked her in the eyes, steady and gentle. "Because you're searching for perfection, not connection. Music isn't about being flawless, it's about being real. When you allow yourself to be real, even your flaws become beautiful." Selena swallowed hard, then nodded slowly. It was a breakthrough. Meanwhile, Clara's other students flourished in ways she hadn't dared to imagine. Mia, once shy and unsure, blossomed into a radiant performer, her voice soaring with newfound strength. Her growth was a testament to Clara's nurturing influence, and it filled Clara with pride every time she heard Mia sing. But Clara's journey wasn't without setbacks. One evening, she received news that rattled her deeply. A longtime mentor and beloved opera singer, Madame Lucille, had passed away suddenly. Madame Lucille had been a guiding light in Clara's early career, offering wisdom, encouragement, and unwavering belief. The loss felt like a personal blow, reopening old wounds and reminding Clara of the fragile nature of life. That night, Clara sat by her window, gazing at the stars and remembering Madame Lucille's voice, rich, warm, and full of life. She felt a renewed determination to honor her mentor's legacy by continuing the work they both cherished. Back at the conservatory, Clara gathered her students for an impromptu gathering. The room was filled with quiet anticipation as she spoke, from the heart. Madame Lucille believed that music could heal, inspire, and unite. She taught me that our voices are gifts meant to be shared, not kept silent by fear or doubt. I want each of you to carry that message forward, not just on the stage but in your lives. Her words stirred something deep within the group. The students felt connected, not just to their music, but to one another and to the greater purpose that Clara embodied. As rehearsals for the upcoming production intensified, Clara faced new challenges. Balancing her role as a mentor, teacher, and advocate tested her resolve daily. There were moments of exhaustion, frustration, and self-doubt. But Clara leaned on the support of her students and colleagues, finding strength in the very community she was helping to build. One crisp autumn morning, the conservatory's director called Clara into his office with unexpected news. The board had decided to renew her contract for another year, a vote of confidence that validated all her efforts. It was a moment of triumph, but Clara knew it was only the beginning. With the production's opening night approaching, Clara worked tirelessly alongside her students, polishing every note, every phrase, every gesture. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation as family, friends, and patrons filled the seats. When the curtain finally rose, Clara watched from the wings as her students brought the opera to life. The music soared, weaving a tapestry of emotion that touched every soul in the room. Mia's voice, once timid and unsure, now commanded the stage with grace and power. Selena, transformed by vulnerability, delivered a performance that moved even the most critical observers to tears. As the final note lingered in the air, the audience erupted in applause, a thunderous ovation that echoed through the conservatory's hallowed halls. Backstage, the students embraced, tears and laughter mingling in a jubilant celebration. Clara stood apart for a moment, her heart full. She had witnessed the impossible, a group of individuals transformed by music, united by courage and ready to face the world with their voices. In that moment, Clara knew that her journey, and theirs, was far from over. But together, they had found something profound. Not just the power to sing, but the strength to inspire, to heal, and to change lives. The glow of the opening night's success still warmed the conservatory halls when Clara found herself facing a new, unexpected challenge. The buzz of applause had faded into the background, replaced by a quiet tension that settled over the institution like a cloud. Rumors whispered through the corridors. Questions about the direction Clara was taking, her unconventional methods, and the balance between artistry and tradition. One afternoon, Clara received an invitation to meet with the conservatory's board. The ornate conference room, bathed in afternoon light filtering through tall windows, felt imposing as she entered. The members sat behind a polished mahogany table, their faces serious but not unkind. "Clara," began the chairperson, a distinguished woman named Mrs. Langford, "we acknowledge the remarkable progress you've made with the students and the passion you bring. However, some board members are concerned that your focus on emotional expression may come at the expense of technical rigor." Clara met their gaze steadily. Art cannot be reduced to technique alone. It is the soul's language. Without heart, technique is hollow. A murmur rippled through the room. Mrs. Langford nodded thoughtfully. "We understand that. But the conservatory's reputation depends on producing technically flawless performers who can compete on the world stage." Clara's voice remained calm yet firm. "True excellence blends technique with authenticity. The students you see thriving are proof of this balance." The discussion continued, but Clara sensed the deeper struggle, the fear of change, the resistance to letting go of old frameworks. When the meeting ended, she left with a renewed determination to prove that embracing both heart and skill was not only possible, but essential. Back in her classroom, Clara doubled down on her efforts. She introduced workshops on improvisation, emotional storytelling, and mindfulness, tools to help her students connect with their inner selves. She encouraged them to explore pieces outside traditional opera, inviting local musicians and poets to collaborate. The conservatory began to pulse with new creative energy, blending classical discipline with innovative expression. Yet, amidst the excitement, Clara couldn't ignore the undercurrents of doubt from some of her students. One afternoon, Thomas, a gifted tenor with dreams of a professional career, approached her hesitantly. "Clara," he said quietly, "I love what you're teaching us about emotion and storytelling, but I worry it might not prepare me for the realities of the industry. Will this really help me succeed?" Clara smiled gently. "Thomas, the world needs technically skilled singers, yes. But it also needs artists who can move people, who can tell stories that resonate. The industry changes, and those who adapt will lead." He nodded, still uncertain but willing to trust her guidance. Outside the conservatory, Clara's life was quietly evolving as well. She found solace in early morning runs through the city park, where the rhythm of her footsteps matched the steady beat of her heart. The routine grounded her, a reminder that strength often came from discipline and patience. One day, while jogging, she stumbled upon a small community center hosting a music program for underserved youth. Drawn by the lively sounds, Clara paused to watch. Children sang with pure joy, their faces radiant despite the challenges they faced. Inspired, Clara began volunteering, teaching weekly classes that brought her immeasurable fulfillment. She saw in these young voices the same hunger and potential she had once nurtured in herself. The experience deepened her understanding of music's power to heal and transform lives beyond concert halls and conservatories. Back at the conservatory, preparations were underway for a prestigious regional competition. Clara encouraged her students to enter, not just to win, but to challenge themselves and grow. The stakes were high, and nerves ran deep. As the competition day arrived, Clara accompanied her students, offering calm reassurance and quiet encouragement. Mia, Selena, Thomas, and others took the stage one by one, pouring everything they had learned into their performances. Some stumbled, others soared, but each left the stage stronger than before. The results were mixed, but Clara saw beyond the trophies. She saw courage, resilience, and the spark of true artistry. Later that evening, as they gathered to celebrate, Clara spoke from her heart. Today wasn't about winning. It was about stepping into your own light, trusting your voice, and embracing the journey. That is the true victory. Her students listened, their faces glowing with pride and newfound confidence. Despite the progress, Clara knew the road ahead remained uncertain. The conservatory's future, her students' careers, and her own path were all entwined in a delicate dance of passion, perseverance, and change. But Clara also knew one thing with absolute certainty. No matter what challenges came, the voice of the soul would always find a way to be heard. The final months of the academic year were filled with both celebration and reflection. Clara had grown into her role not just as a teacher, but as a beacon of inspiration for the conservatory community. Her students, once unsure and guarded, now walked the halls with a sense of purpose and confidence that seemed to ripple outward, touching everyone they met. One crisp morning, Clara received an unexpected invitation to participate in a national symposium for music educators held in New York City. It was an opportunity to share her innovative teaching philosophy with peers and to advocate for a new vision of vocal arts education, one that honored both tradition and emotional truth. As she prepared her presentation, Clara reflected on her journey, the moments of doubt, the victories both big and small, and the profound connections forged through music. She knew this was more than a career milestone. It was a chance to influence the future of an art form she loved deeply. At the symposium, Clara stood before an audience of accomplished musicians, educators, and critics. Her voice, steady and passionate, carried her message. Music is the language of the human spirit. To teach it well, we must nurture not only the voice but the soul behind it. Technique is our foundation, but emotion is the bridge that connects us to our audience and to each other. Her words resonated, sparking thoughtful conversations and new collaborations. Clara's vision of blending discipline with authenticity found eager listeners and allies. Invitations to workshops and guest lectures soon followed, expanding her influence beyond the conservatory walls. Back home, the conservatory prepared for its annual showcase, an event that brought families, patrons, and the city's music lovers together to witness the year's accomplishments. Clara's students were ready, their performances polished and heartfelt. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. As the lights dimmed and the first notes filled the grand auditorium, Clara's heart swelled with pride. Each student told a story, not just through music but through the courage they had found within themselves. Mia's soprano soared with grace, Selena's emotive phrasing moved many to tears, and Thomas's rich tenor carried a new depth of feeling. When the final ovation echoed through the hall, Clara stepped forward to address the crowd. Her voice carried warmth and gratitude. This year has been a journey of growth, discovery, and resilience. These young artists have shown us that when we listen not only with our ears but with our hearts, we can truly connect and inspire. I am honored to have walked this path with them. In the days that followed, Clara received messages from former students, colleagues, and strangers touched by her story. The ripple effect of her work was spreading, reaching far beyond the conservatory's historic walls. One afternoon, as Clara walked through the park where her journey of healing had begun, she paused beneath a blooming magnolia tree. The soft petals danced in the breeze, reminding her of life's cycles, endings that lead to new beginnings. Her phone buzzed with a message from Mia. "Clara, I've been accepted into a prestigious opera company overseas. Thank you for believing in me." Clara smiled, tears of joy welling in her eyes. This was the legacy she had hoped to create, not fame or fortune, but the power to change lives through music and love. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara felt a profound sense of peace. Her journey had been filled with unexpected twists and trials, But through it all, she had found her true voice, not only as a singer or teacher, but as a guide, a healer, and a catalyst for transformation. And so, with a heart full of hope and a soul singing its own beautiful song, Clara looked forward to the chapters yet unwritten, knowing that the music she had nurtured would continue to echo for generations to come.